all the way from the UK. Please give a big, warm welcome to Cabeza Patata.
Hi, everyone. Oh, wow, so loud. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. It's such a nice full house. Thank you, Dash, for having us here and for letting us be first to perform for you as well.
Yeah, we are Cabeza Patata. I'm Abel.
And I'm Katie, and you might know our work. You might know us from different types of animation campaigns. We work quite a lot for big tech companies like Apple or Spotify in big global campaigns, but also more local things too.
Yeah, we worked as well, for example, with Costa. It's a bit like Starbucks, but in the UK and around Europe. And that was pretty amazing because we got to see our work just literally in front of our house. This is our local cafe. Yeah. We told the people that work there, and they just didn't care, but it's fine. Yeah.
We also, as well as doing stuff, a lot of digital 3D work, we like to make physical pieces too, like these giant characters which we made for a center in China. And these are, I don't know, there's no people there for reference, but they're like 2 meters tall, so that was pretty cool for us.
And also, we do all types of work. We like doing work with product design. These are some labels for wines in Germany. And really different type of projects as well. We've done editorial illustration. We are very proud of that. There's not that much 3D editorial illustration out there. We work for the New York Times or the New Yorker. And public campaigns as well.
Yeah, we love seeing our characters just being around the city as well, popping up wherever possible. I think my happiest thing is when someone says, oh, I'm always seeing your characters pop up around. That's what I like most of all.
Yeah, this was for Prague. They have a square during summer where they do events. So we're celebrating community and events during summertime. And this is the type of campaign we love doing.
So that's everything that we do that maybe you know, maybe it's new to you. But this is actually not a talk about Cabeza Patata.
Right now, probably the people at Dashbash are thinking, oh, what is going on? But we think like with time, we've been discovering that the interesting story is not necessarily the story about Cabeza Patata, but this is actually a different story. It's a story that started in London in summer 2013, so it's exactly 10 years ago.
And in an art school there called St. Martin's, that you might know of, and this young couple who met there doing a summer course.
So yeah, this is us 10 years ago. I didn't have a mustache by then. That's how you can tell the time change.
Often we like to say that our first creative endeavor was the first haircut that I gave to Abel.
Yeah, she's been cutting my hair ever since. I haven't been to the hairdresser for 10 years. You can judge for yourself. And like, we think that, yeah, that was a creative endeavor, but we've been finding more things that were creative stuff that we were doing between both of us. During the years of our relationship, we've been living in different cities. We moved to Paris, then to Barcelona, London. And for a while, we were living away from one another. And we kept a box with all the postcards that we were sending to one another, like trying to make homemade drawings.
Yeah, and you see all these funny little characters that right from the beginning we were drawing for each other. And that's sort of what became really Cabeza Patata. So when we put together this talk, we started realizing that, well, the real tenets of our partnership, which are respect and valuing each other's opinions, letting the other be independent, of course, and having a common goal together, that those values in our relationship are actually also what make up the tenets of our company. So when we think about big moments in our life as well, often people think, oh, it must be all about Cabeza Patata. But actually, no, the biggest moments for us are things like my graduation from university.
Or when we got married 5 years ago, that was a big moment as well.
In this really extra room in London. Or the first home that we bought together, and we were making all of the pieces of furniture and stuff by ourselves.
So more and more we started realizing that Cabeza Patata was just another step in our relationship. A very big one has become very big, but it's another step of our relationship.
And actually the beginnings of Cabeza Patata really were us having fun together. It was a bit like when we were sending each other postcards. It was us drawing murals on the streets of Barcelona.
Yeah, or painting window displays in Barcelona as well. It was having fun with different textures, different materials. Our characters actually started appearing some embroidery that Katie was doing at the time.
So when we started thinking about being a studio, it was also really just, let's have a bit of fun with it. And I don't know, people don't always believe us about this, but we really put this website together in a weekend.
Yeah, we were working during the weekend, and the weekend we were like, let's make a website. It was not much thinking behind it. We made this image with the yellow background and our heads there. I think I've been keeping the mustache ever since because I have one in this image, so we need to keep in brand.
Yeah,
but like,
apologies for wearing contact lenses and I'm not in character.
Yeah, Katie should be wearing glasses to continue in character, but it is the thinking behind this website was not much thinking. The name was a funny name that sounded a bit like Hakuna Matata or something. But the reality is that from that point, that weekend when we made this website, to a year later, our lives had changed a lot.
Yeah, so from 5 years till now, Cabeza Patata grew fast, like very, very fast. And at some point, we actually felt like the company itself, the studio that we built, was getting bigger than us and gave us this single goal that was just growth and to make more money and to get more clients and to just get bigger no matter what. Yeah,
so the story we're going to talk about today is how we took back control of all of this as a couple. And we did that by saying no whenever it was necessary. I think we were saying yes too many times at the beginning.
Of course, this talk is not a recipe book. Sometimes yes can become no, no can become yes. We're not perfect. But the main thing we realized is that we need so much more than growth and money alone. What we really need is things like taking care of our mental health.
We need to feel valued by people that are working with us. And we need to balance our life. We can just not spend all time just focusing on work.
So at some point we realized, look, Cabeza Patata is no longer in charge. Actually, we are. So this has actually given us many possibilities and many different positives. And we're going to leave a few here now, but with no context.
So, for example, having lunch with the ambassador to the US in Botswana, in Africa.
Yeah, no explanation for that one.
Working with Lego on a shoot in which we are kind of TV presenters of a TV show that's coming out quite soon.
And traveling around California and later the world in our 80s camper van, Buttercup.
So we are going to explain the top 6 no's that got us to those situations. And we're going to start with the first one.
No to a representation agency. So, interesting response. So right at the beginning when we started working together, as we were saying, it really was for fun. So one of the first projects that we decided to do was one focused on women in sport. Just because when we were looking for references for projects, probably a lot of you do this, sort of Google different images, different photographs, see what you can find. And when you search for women in sport, at least 5 years ago, the results were kind of awful, really sexualized images only. It wasn't really like the women were ever properly in strong, powerful positions. So we thought, hey, why don't we make some really cool illustrations, and maybe one day we can be at the top when you type in woman playing basketball.
And we started making it in 3D. And because it was clothes, garments that were for sport, we wanted to make them a bit more realistic. And that's how we learned how to use this program that was more like for high fashion, Marvelous Designer. And we started making all these outfits for the characters. And we noticed that we were finding something very interesting. Nowadays, probably you've seen images like these out there by other studios and other companies. But when we made this hadn't been seen before. And I think the contrast between the graphicality of the 3D mixed with the very realistic clothes was kind of ticking on someone, like checking a point of in someone's, like on people's brains that were making the images very attractive, and people started getting a lot of attention.
For sure, but the idea of us to start using this program was, as we say, just for fun and to kind of solve a solution that we wanted to make these realistic clothes.
You can see here Katie's wearing actually the clothes that the characters are using. Funny enough, that's a jacket I had when I think I was 8 or 9 years old that was left in my grandparents' house, and we went to visit, and Katie was like, I can use this. And then ended up being one of the garments for our characters.
Also, we take reference from real-life photography, like we were saying, when we'd search in model fashion shoot, a bit like with the sport, all of the women were in these kind of compromising positions, and the men, like Benedict Cumberbatch, were in the super cool position. So we said, hey, why don't we remake that, but with a little bit of more of a gender-ambiguous character, or just see what we can come up with that way.
Yeah, and the images, we started feeling that they were working very well. Like we were getting somewhere very interesting. And we started putting the images out there. You know, we were putting them in the internet. There was no much thinking behind this. By then, we hadn't done a single commercial project. But you know, when you are starting to get attention, you think, OK, representation seems logical. It's what people around us have told us that we had to do. So we just went and found a representation agency.
And for anyone who's not completely sure what a representation agency is in the world of illustration or sometimes in animation, they're a figure that stands between the job and you. So for the total money that you would get from the job, they take a commission from that, and they get you the job and manage the job.
So usually the commission, depending on the person, can vary from like 25, 30%. If you are very big, you can get smaller commissions, but that's around the numbers. But then when we started working with a representation agency, they told us, oh, actually, we're not working directly with the clients. We are working with advertisement agencies. So if you are wondering what an advertisement agency is, they contact the client, and they sit in between the job, the advertisement agency, the representation agency, and you. And then, so the money you were going to get gets a tiny bit more reduced. You're getting a bit less of the pie. But now they said, OK, guys, you're actually only 2 people. You have no experience doing commercial projects, so we're going to have to attach a third production company. So the production company now was sitting between us, the job, the advertisement agency, the representation agency.
And you guessed it, from the pile of money that you were going to get right at the beginning, they get another slice of that as well. And we realized, actually, likely you'll end up with less than 20% of the total budget, and maybe even more annoyingly, a lot of people with opinions about your work in the middle of it. Yeah.
And you probably heard many reasons why all these middlemen are very important. The only thing that we are asking everyone to question is there maybe a vested interest in feeding this to us that is so important that like we really need them? And we furthermore started questioning, you know, like our representation agency was in central London, super fancy building, taking the clients to the most expensive lunches. And all of our creative friends were like in factories, in old factories in the outskirts of the city.
And we were all like, this is so cool and trendy, but actually, why can't we be in the center of the city?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I want a skyscraper for myself. So
we realized that if we can get rid of the advertising agency, the representation agency, and the production company, then maybe it's better for us, because in reality, none of those people gave any suggestions on our style. They didn't fund our first months of work when we were figuring out what we were going to do and how we were going to be, and none of our ideas really came from them. So within 6 months of starting with a representation agency, we said no, and we cancelled that.
And since then, we've been seriously believing that as creatives, we have more power than we often realize.
And we're just saying, don't let those middlemen take that power away from you. Always question the preconceptions about what's needed to really make it in the industry, because so many times people come to us and they say, oh yeah, but to get big clients, I need to have a representation agency. How will I ever reach them? But actually, in our experience, we've been able to work with these big clients all around the world, and none of them came through any kind of representation agency.
And working with all these big clients directly doesn't mean only to get the bigger budget. That's not only what we are talking about. It meant that we have direct access to information that's key to our businesses. Like, we have direct emails with these companies. We have direct communication. It's much more simple to get feedback, for example.
It also means that we were learning how to negotiate all the time on the job, which people often say, oh, but I don't know how to negotiate. Well, sure you don't if you never learn how to, if you don't get to have the information. And actually, I think it's quite fun and empowering to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Of course, it means that as well, you can have bigger budgets. And more importantly, it means that you can be in control of your own time. So that means as well at work, it means we can have a bit more time to be doing our own personal projects. We can be more picky about the projects that we do. But also, we can just have fun and go and travel in our van with our dog if we want to.
And growing our own brand name, I think that's one of the most important parts of it. I think a lot of people don't realize how important is our brand name. Like, either if you're like a freelancer or you're running a small studio, you're not growing someone else's agency name. We're growing our own name.
And this point is particularly important, I think, because such a big part of our life is our career, really. And if you don't feel fulfilled or confident or comfortable at work, then sometimes it's hard to leave that as the door. I've always been a really shy person, but since starting working as Cabeza Patata and becoming more independent, I've noticed just in my own life, I'm able to be more assertive and positive, and I feel like a better person because of that. So it's not just about work.
Our second no is no to being a traditional production company. And you know, there are so many assumptions about what a production company actually has to be. We all know, you know, like you need a certain size of team to do big animation jobs. That's what everyone assumes. You need big computers, you need like a render farm, whatever that is, massive. Studio managers kind of making everyone move faster. You need interns bringing coffee to everyone because everyone's so stressed out, they need more coffee. And we think that none of this is actually necessary for a great job.
We're going to show you a big moment in our life, which is when we got our first house, the Casa Patata in Barcelona. But at exactly the same time that this was happening, we also got our biggest job to date, which was with Spotify. And I think we were in a really good mood. We were really buoyant from getting the house and everything. And so this sort of mixture of blissful ignorance and these great characters that we'd made somehow landed us the job.
And it wasn't a small job. It was 12 videos, 25 illustrations, and we had a month and a half to do it. And we hadn't done before. And, you know, like, we said yes, and then it was like, how are we going to make this happen? But the advantage we had is that we're small, so we were able to just go out there and hire the best. Hire the best means that you don't have to give us much feedback. You can let people just go for it. And also, we often say that like there are very good freelancers out there. Like the best character animators out there, some of them are so good that they don't even want to kind of stay in the same place.
Yeah, we
forever.
found a ton of people who are actually working on amazing video games and movies who just wanted to put in extra hours to come work with us because they believed in the project and liked the idea. So that was really special for us too. Also, having direct communication with the client kind of made the whole project really fun because it meant that everyone got to be more excited about the whole thing. You didn't have any crossed wires of somebody giving feedback and it heads down that chain that we were talking about earlier. And by the time it gets to you, you just feel kind of annoyed about it and a little bit resentful and don't do it super well. So.
And also being efficient. Being efficient is something that we learned because we were a small team. We were most of the time working with laptops, so we learned how to put our lights in a simple way. You know, we were using simple light setups. We kind of, in a way, the infinite backgrounds is a way as well of being efficient, making people focus only on the character design. And that doesn't mean that our work was lacking on technical abilities. What I mean is that we were learning how to do it without having to spend 10, 20, 30 minutes per frame.
And here we can show you the reel of all of the different videos all put together.
So the campaign went very well, and that's usually would be the end of what you discover about the campaign, but we want to talk as well about the bad parts. And there are some funny bad parts and a bit more serious downsides. But like the funny part was that we just had bought our apartment in Barcelona, and we were so busy that we didn't even think of like, let's move to an Airbnb. We had builders coming and we were doing building works ourselves.
That was the kitchen.
We were full of dust every evening, working as well on the house was crazy. We were working with Spotify, like sending emails from the laundrette because our clothes were constantly full of dust from the building works. It was a mess.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, it was a mess, but it was kind of fun too. We told you about this blissful ignorance, and we were just knocking about having a good time. But really, after the whole campaign ended, there was kind of a more serious downside. for us at least, and that was what making a lot of money very quickly can do to your brain.
Yeah, we were not really ready for such a big campaign. And I personally started feeling when we got the money into the account, like a lot of anxiety. I wasn't sure what was coming next. Our life until then had been having, like quite a linear path with work. But suddenly I was like, should I invest the money? I don't even know about investment. Should we just grow the company? Maybe we should start hiring a lot of people and be a very big studio. But that was not the original goal. Like, it's something like you assume when you have more money inside the company. And also, we started feeling, or myself started feeling, do I really deserve it? Do we really deserve it? I always had in my life the perspective that people that have a lot of money or make money come from privilege. They do it because they don't deserve it. Like, it's being given to them by the fact of where they were born. And suddenly, I felt that we needed to make a change, but I didn't know what was to happen. And we had so many conversations about it.
Yeah, and we got a little bit worried that if we were to change our lifestyle or change our studio size, then maybe that would actually mean that we'd have more pressure even for the next big job, and we'd be in this kind of constant cyclical thing of having to get bigger to have to get bigger.
And the pressure grew, and grew fast and a lot, because, Spotify themselves were sending the campaign to awards, and we started winning awards. Expectations started growing, like it gave us a lot of attention. Katie was named by Forbes magazine like in the 30 under 30 list, which was like really cool.
And it just felt like the pressure to make the next big thing was coming left, right, center, when actually what we wanted to do was stuff like this.
Yeah.
I'd always wanted to get into weaving, so we thought, oh, now's probably the perfect moment to get a loom and weave this rug.
Or we had this plan. One morning, Katie said, I just want to make a really, really big Carter that you can hug. So we made this 3 meters tall Carter. And you can imagine this is not what the big production companies are doing to prepare for the next job.
Yeah, they're not making personalized cookie cutters with their characters.
We're like, oh, we can just do it with a 3D printer, and we made them and gave them to all our neighbors in Barcelona. That's definitely not what you do when you have the expectation of growing as a studio.
But actually, we realized what we had decided to do then was what was making us happier. By the way, we did finish the building works in our house eventually, and I don't know if we went a bit crazy or if it's creative genius. You can make up your mind, but during the pandemic, we did a project in the house, because obviously no one was able to leave the house, where we made ourselves in different places in the house.
It was so much work. I don't know for what reason. We were like setting up lights in the house and preparing for it.
Yeah, I think we all went a bit crazy at that time, so you can forgive us.
But yeah, like, I still like them, They didn't get that much attention. I see them, I'm like, this is quite cool, you know? It's ourselves in our own house, but in 3D. Yeah. The third point we want to talk about is no to the pressure to a permanent location. And that's another expectation that we all have. I think that we all grow thinking, if I'm in a shared space, it means that I'm starting out. If I have my own studio space, I'm successful.
And so, of course, we did what seemed logical at the time, and we got our own physical space in Barcelona as well, the Cabeza Patata, because our idea was as well that we wanted to connect a bit more to the neighborhood. We thought it would be fun that we can have people around. We've got students around to come and visit, see the different facilities. But then, of course, I don't need to remind anyone that the pandemic arrived.
And suddenly we felt that we were in this big studio space, having to manage like the internet and the water bills, and we discovered that the city charges you more for like garbage collection or something. It was like so many steps of having the studio, and we're like, this is not really making us necessarily happier. And when the pandemic opened a tiny bit more, and they allowed to travel around Spain, we could go to Canary Islands. Those are some islands that are like quite south, like near Africa, but they belong to Spain. So we traveled there, and we just went there a bit like back to the beginnings, with our laptops and a small suitcase, and we joined this co-working space in an old factory in Gran Canaria, the capital of the Canary Islands, and it was great.
Yeah, for the first time we realized that actually we were feeling so much happier with less. And it wasn't that we were being any less productive. It wasn't like we were just going on holiday, even if it looks a bit like it. Actually, from that rooftop from the old factory...
By the way, this is kind of wintertime. In the Canary Islands, they don't really get wintertime. And by that point, I'm working on this project. We were working with Apple on their Christmas campaign, which was amazing. I mean, people were coming to us and being like, oh, what are you guys working on? We were like, oh, just don't look at my laptop.
Yeah. Yeah, but we realized as well for the first time that working and traveling was actually a really viable option. I think we talked about it all the time before. We were like, oh, great, it's great. Our job's so cool because you can work remotely. But we didn't really do it.
No.
And now we realize that we can do that. We can have these beautiful views while we work one day. And we can, in our lunch break, go snorkeling.
Yeah, and also we realized that sharing the space with different people were not in the same industry as us, or people that were not in the same level, like working with like the same clients, was opening the circle, was making us feel much better. And we enjoyed so much that we decided to move from offices that look like this to our new offices that are these ones.
And yes, so we mentioned before our camper van Buttercup, which we just absolutely fell in love with, and it became a real inspiration for us in the work as well. It meant that we could really work from anywhere, and we came up with these fun extra ideas of things we can do. People are always so surprised because they think, oh, 3D studio, you're going to need to have loads of computers and loads of power and everything.
Yeah, and the reality is that most of the power comes from solar panels we have on the top. Of course, sometimes when we are rendering, we need to connect it to hook up to electricity in different places, but it works. You know, we have a fridge, we have a small kitchen. Then many people had one question about our van, that is, how did we move it? Because we started our trip in California and then we moved it to Europe, but we have a technique for that. I think you can see in the next slide.
It was easy.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
So we got the van back over to Europe in the bag, and we went off to Switzerland, actually, and we just kind of carried on the adventure there, and we realized, hey, we can just be the studio on wheels for the year.
Some people think that we are lying, that we did it for, for a weekend, and we are exaggerating. But for real, last year, 2022, we were on the road. That's what we did, and we worked on many commercial campaigns, and we had different evenings with different sunsets every night, and it was amazing. It was beautiful.
Our fourth point is no to hiding behind the screen, because the reality for us as a 3D studio is that 3D makes more money because it's easier to sell to clients, it's easier to make changes, which is very common, and it's just more valued in the society that we are. Crafts and manual work is often not considered artistic because of the history that it has, the idea that it's more women would be doing it at home, so it's something more like a hobby, not something that's considered worth paying for.
But we think that when we really analyze our work, where the 3D work we do comes from, we can really trace it to different crafts. For example, the Carter clothes that we make, in reality, come from our love for making clothes in real life.
The tactile feeling that are in our images that so many people really love actually comes from our love of making physical objects and using different materials.
Our love for using different patterns and strong colors comes from the real-life patterns that we've been making for ages. These are some pillows that we made with our own patterns.
And our love of physical comedy and dance really informs all of the characters' movements now. Our love for cartoons that we watched when we were kids now is so relevant to us. And combining crafts and technology has always been right at the beginning and the heart of what we do. So we've got a nice example of a project that does just that.
Yeah, it's so at the heart that sometimes, we travel back and forth between the digital world and the physical. This job, this 3D chess we made just for fun, started as a 3D file that then we 3D printed. Then this is the files 3D printed. They were plastic pieces, and luckily I played a lot Warhammer when I was a teenager, so I knew all the techniques for painting the pieces, and we used the dry brush and everything. And then we made a wooden chessboard, and this is the final result. But then we took it one step further, and we were like, what about if now we digitize what we made in physical world from the digital file, and we bring it back to the computer, and then people don't know what is real, what is not, what is 3D, what is a photo, and that's something that attracts us a lot.
That's my favorite thing, yeah, when people are completely confused, or sometimes people start recommending you different types of paints, and you think, should I tell them everything's 3D?
We have another example.
Another one, which is one that we made just earlier this year. We were invited to speak in a festival in Manchester. And the idea of the festival was to celebrate the cities of Manchester and Barcelona and the creativity between them. And there's this beautiful old art shop in Manchester that's about 100 years old. And they have rotating window displays where they invite artists to decorate them. And so we were invited to come up with an idea to do that. And the display was huge. It was 5 by 7 by 3 meters.
So here we have the initial sketch we made with the cities at each side. And in the next slide, you can see that we prepared some cutouts completely digitally. And then luckily now we have access to a big industrial laser cutter. So we cut everything in wood and we hand painted it. And we combined that as well with puppets that we made. We made, I think, 30 puppets inspired by our 3D puppets. You know, like we love making our characters with the spheres. So we had wooden spheres, and we made all the puppets hanging from all over the display. And you can see here the planning that went behind. You know, for making something so big, having a bit of planning in 3D was very useful. And now you can see us here, like surrounded by all the creation. And this is the type of work that we love. You know, like that combination. Oh, thank you. And I feel like it's where our studio is moving more and more, is this combination. But in the next slide, we're going to ask you to film this. I know that nobody's filming it right now, but like just in case, we shouldn't be showing it, but we are too excited because like everyone, you always get excited about the latest thing you've done.
Yeah, so we just finished working with this project with Lego. And we showed a little bit earlier that we were doing this shoot with them, that we were sort of presenting this show that we're going to have released a bit later in the year. But as well as the show, they also gave us loads of Lego pieces. So we spent weeks building real-life Lego sculptures, and then we have
made an animation.
We have created an animation that we'll show a little bit here.
A few months ago, Lego invited us to work with them, and we wanted to make something really special. Come join us at the Lego store in London's Leicester Square and set your imagination free.
So we wanted to make this stop-motion rocket taking off, but we do actually have another secret, which is that we actually just made it all in 3D.
And it's because it actually is super difficult to animate in stop motion with Lego pieces. They go everywhere. So we're going to show here behind the scenes Katie pretending to be working on it. And I think on the next slide, you can see we kind of masked everything. We have the animation, and now on the right, you're going to see after this part, you're going to see how Katie is working on it. And we are pretty sure nobody's going to notice, but if they notice, we just don't care. It's fine. Technology, it's not about that. For us, the technology part is good. It's good to be exploring with it. What was important is that we didn't stay in the computer. You know, we got the physical pieces, we analyzed, we built the rocket in real life, we learned how it worked, and then we were ready to jump into the computer.
And also, the important thing is it's just the idea at the heart of it. I think since we were little, probably we'd wanted to see a Lego rocket taking off like that. And so when they came to us, we said, OK, we're going to make the rocket. It's going to happen. And I mean, it kind of did in the end for everyone watching. They don't know that it didn't really. And I think that's the important thing. It's keeping that spirit and a bit of that magic that we always wanted alive.
And we're showing you another project kind of inspired by this idea of mixing things. But this is a collaboration with family. My brother is there on the right. You know, like we've been working like husband and wife for years now. And now we are adding my brother. It's amazing how we are keeping it with the family. But my brother is an engineer in robotics. And he was doing some tests with like little robots playing instruments. And we were like, let's make it into an entire band.
Yeah, we like to call it the world's first robotic puppet rock band.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's accurate, but here's a little bit of the beginnings of the band, which is called Mechanica, because they're all mechanical pieces.
So this is very simple. You know, like we have a little engine, a little motor with a potentiometer. And in the next slide, you can see how, you know, like when you activate, you move the little potentiometer, you get different positions for the head. And when you combine all the motors, you start getting more and more complex movements. So using Arduino, which are our really mini computers that are controlling all the motors at the same time, step by step, we got a lot of cables together and a lot of Arduinos, and we ended up making this 3-piece band that they can play different instruments.
So they were all looking pretty mechanical to begin with, but the important part for us, obviously, as well, was to be making the puppets, because we wanted to make sure that they actually looked completely magical. They looked more like a Toy Story, like you might leave the room and they'd come alive, but you couldn't see any of the ugly bits behind
And you can see here how we are combining, you know, something very physical, wooden heads and very crafty materials with something very digital and very robotic. It was very fun. We had a lot of problems building the entire thing. Sometimes the entire robot was losing arms. And we ended up covering everything with foam. In the next slide, you can see how like this character was a bit easier to build, but like we are building everything with foam. And you have in the next slide the first test we made. I love seeing my brother's face on the left.
Yeah, not really enjoying it, but kind of. And once we'd got to this point, we were ready to.
And we presented this project in Berlin in May 2023. And the most amazing thing, and it's something that we usually don't get when we are doing digital projects, is to see everyone interacting with the band. We had a little MIDI controller that would allow people to change the tempo and change different actions on the characters and change the music. So to see everyone interacting with it was incredible.
Our fifth note is no to being secretive. And this is something that's been really important to us right from the beginning. We've always really loved teaching and doing workshops. This is one that we did also in Berlin, but a few years ago, which I think is maybe the world record for the biggest embroidery workshop ever.
It was crazy.
But I'm not completely sure.
But last year, we decided to start a new adventure. From all the knowledge we had on teaching, it was like start an online school. So we started Patata School. And the idea was not to make something that was just tutorials in which people would just press the right buttons. It was teaching people the process of thinking like a character designer and make work that you get fulfilled with. And as well, we started putting together some ideas that we had in a book that we give for free to people on our website, and as well some sample contracts and little things that
things that we wished we would have had at the beginning, that we slowly picked up as we went over the years, but actually would have been really useful if someone could just say, oh, hey, this is what you should put in a contract. This is how the roadmap of a project usually works.
Yeah.
And we put everything together to make Patata School, and we have a little trailer explaining a bit about the school.
What if Cabeza Patata, a studio that works on global campaigns with Spotify, Google and the Grinch, opened a school? What if that school included everything you need to make things amazing? Hours of tutorials in 2D animation, 3D modeling, rendering, clothes, anything you can think of in between, and resource libraries with lighting, textures and brushes. What if that school was constantly evolving with its students at its heart? What if that school offered a new way of teaching and learning based on real-life examples from the best in the industry? What if we understood the importance of community and shared experience? That it's about more than just pressing the right buttons, but that it's about learning to think for yourself and to make something incredible. That's Patata School, and you can join today.
So the best part of running this... Thank you. The best part of running this has been the community. We were worried about what was going to happen. First, we were not sure how many people were going to join. We are right now 1,200 people inside the school, so it's a lot. And we spend every morning like an hour, 2 hours replying to everyone. It's just something that we love, like answering not only technical questions, but a lot of artistic questions.
And seeing people's beautiful work that everyone shares in the community, and seeing, this is just from one course, but how many people have made such different and unique versions from the course. And I think that's just what we were trying to show, is that when you're teaching people more how to think and less how to push buttons, then people make their own beautiful, amazing results.
Yeah, we had incredible results. Some people really kind of took it to their own style and made work that I think that is completely different from ours, and that's what we are the most proud of. We have, quickly we can show a QR code. We are giving, it's the biggest discount we ever get for the school, but if you take a photo or you put #bash in the code for the discount, you will get a 60% discount, and we are going to be running it for the next few weeks. So,
yeah, so if you come and say hi in the community as well, we can give an extra shout out to #bash. But really the idea of the school is actually not only being this typical online school that you might have seen before, but really we're going beyond that. We are doing different types of things, running interviews, and we'd like to set up a podcast, doing shows, and really we're taking suggestions from our communities so that we can grow in the direction that people want to. We've recently started doing live sessions, so we're doing, we had recently a live talk with our friend who's a stop-motion animator who's amazing, called Dina Amin, talking about her experience setting up her business in Egypt and how she's working now with amazing global clients, but she started off in her bathroom with her phone, secretly animating things.
But in reality, it's whatever our community requires. We really listen to the people that are inside of there. They suggest new courses, and we make them. This is a very personal project for us. And we are really committed to just provide people value.
Our final no, and I think is an important one right now, is no to blindly following something just because it's new. And we thought this is something that we ought to bring up because it's something that students are always asking us about, which is AI art, or artificial intelligence in our industry.
So this is one of the examples of the AI website, Midjourney. And for example, Adobe has been experimenting with it. And they actually invited us to try the beta of Adobe Firefly. And we were very skeptic from the beginning about AI art, but we wanted to try it because we wanted to experiment. Why not?
So one of the prompts that we first put in, because they say to be really specific with the prompt and you get the best results, so we put this super specific portrait of an artisan, dark green ceramic jug on a white coaster on a light wooden table, shallow depth of field.
And we were amazed when we saw the result. It was like, oh my goodness, it looks so realistic and it's exactly what we asked for. It just doesn't make sense that the computer can create that. But actually, we didn't get invited to the beta. We just lied to you. And actually, we made this in 3D.
Yeah. The only thing, though, is actually we didn't make it in 3D. We just took a picture.
It was quite a lot of effort to make that pretend 3D from the photo. It was like, yeah, it was a morning wasted on just a joke. But what we are trying to make people with this is like, does the image have any value, had any value in the first place? It's a picture of a little jar that I took in the morning without thinking about the lighting, without thinking about any artistic value on it.
Was it even an interesting image? Were you only impressed because you thought it was 3D or you thought that it was AI? And do we even need more images? Do we need to just make images for the sake of making images? Is not the idea the actual making of it, and the idea is that we have an enjoyment?
And we have an example of this. Like recently, there's a newspaper in Spain that they said, oh, from now on, we're going to use AI to illustrate our articles. And they wanted to illustrate an article talking about reading. So AI started giving them all these different images, and they were like proudly talking about how they put these images on their articles. And we think that this newspaper could have just gone to some stock images and just get stock images and pay some royalties to artists, or could actually have hired an illustrator. That's another thing they could have done, someone that could read the article and do an interpretation of it.
So why really are people using AI? Why did this newspaper decide to use an AI illustration? We think that that's summed up in a quote that we saw recently on Twitter that said, if you're not using AI, you're falling behind. And it's that sort of fear of missing out that grabs us all the time, I think. And we always say if fear is being used to sell you something, then make sure that you question it.
Yeah. We think that when humans are detached from technology, things start feeling soulless and boring. And this is not a high elevated artistic thing. So I'm going to come down to earth. I'm going to talk about FIFA, This is a bit like telling a secret, like in a conference with artists, we shouldn't talk about FIFA. Maybe it's okay to play some Nintendo games, Zelda is fine, but like Abel is playing FIFA at night? Yes, sometimes I do. But there's something very interesting in FIFA. I love playing online. I hate playing against the computer. But when I play online, I'm not like talking to the people. I don't put my microphone on. I don't put the camera. The enjoyment of playing FIFA against other people is something that is very difficult to describe. It's the subtle human details that are key to the experience that make me enjoy the game. And this happens in like bigger stages as well. I mean, when you see online video game competitions, people are not going to see some online video game. People are going to see some humans playing the online video game because they're seeing the struggle of the humans, the fights they are having in the video game, their personalities, how they are taking the loss, how they are behaving when they win.
And you might have seen, or I definitely have, some AI images that just feel so human and amazing. There was recently a photography competition in London, and the winning photograph was generated by AI. The photographer had submitted it just to kind of question the whole concept of it. So why are they feeling so human? Well, really, to explain what AI is a bit like a sort of digital collage.
Yeah, what the computer is doing is getting a lot of images from massive archive, sometimes even without permission from the artist. And then it's kind of doing an auto-completing, which is just putting parts that kind of make sense with one another. And we think there's a problem with that. And we're going to illustrate that talking about the royal family. This is the British royal family.
Yeah, I know that I am not a fan of the royal family, but I know that Americans kind of love the royal family for some reason.
So we're going to talk and be a bit insulting the Spanish royal family. Because I'm Spanish, I don't even know, I don't think anyone knows that we had a royal family in Spain. So no worries, we are safe here.
So the question that we're asking, and you'll see the link now maybe, what happens when the AI starts producing images from their own images? So what happened when the royal family were only letting, cousins marry each other to keep the power all together?
So we got results like this. These are real people. We got Fernando VII, El Deseado, means the desired one. Like the guys started getting these really weird faces from like being cousins married to cousins. Like
this is the Enchanted.
Carlos II Enchanted, Felipe IV. Like things started getting very weird. And someone might say, look, Abel, this is not only going to be about digital collage. At some point, the computer is actually going to understand reality. This is not going to be a collage. They're going to have a personality, and they're going to understand reality. But in that case, if the computer has its own personality and dreams, we think we shouldn't be worried at all about AI art. So we have a complete set of instructions that we recommend to people.
Yeah, when the computers gain consciousness, just throw away your graphic tablets and replace that with filling up your bathtub, number one.
It's going to be difficult to get fresh water, so fill up your bathtub.
Source some weapons.
Anything goes,
And get some fuel. That will be the new currency when the machines take over.
But in reality, we think that what is happening a bit with AI happened a couple years ago with Web3 or NFTs. We create these bubbles in the industry. Tech people come and they tell us that we are going to become millionaires or we're going to be poor if we don't follow what they do. And we think that the tech industry keep missing something, and they keep getting it wrong. But instead of explaining it ourselves, we're going to let Jorge Drexler, he's a singer from Uruguay that lives in Barcelona, and he's going to sing it to you.
Communication is, it always has been, part of the human condition. So if we think about the songs, poems, and images that have always been created and existing, or nowadays the video games, more interactive experiences, websites that a lot of us in here are actually making, the idea is that they connect us to one another.
Yeah, the systems might change, but the message is not changing.
So whatever that you're going to go and make after this conference, or even you're scribbling right now, don't forget to add a bit of human love to it.
Thank you.